You're listening to episode number 3 of the Play Your Position podcast.
Welcome to the Play Your Position podcast, where your story matters and we make it count. Here's your host, Mary Lou Kaser. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone. I am really excited to introduce my guest today, Jim and Donna Teeny. So, Jim and Donna, are you ready for kickoff?
We sure are.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Jim and Donna Teeny are a dynamic duo who work together to bring the joy of fly fishing to people all over the world. Jim has been a fly fisherman since he was 12 years old when he began tying flies, and he entered into the fly fishing industry professionally 43 years ago in July of 1971. Interestingly enough, Donna started tying flies for Jim 42 years ago, so not much longer after he got into the business. And he has been fortunate to have fished the world, teaching and sharing the art and sport of fly fishing to thousands of people. He's also held several fly rod world records. And Donna was the first person to actually introduce a line of clothing for women in fishing. She keeps Jim organized. They are ambassadors with Cabela's, and they tie flies wherever they go. So, Jim and Donna, welcome to the show. I really would love for you to start our show off by just telling us how this whole fly fishing position came into your lives.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Back in May of 1962, I was a junior in high school. We went to East Lake in Central Oregon, and that's when I first tied up that's now today called the Teeny Nymph. And it was like having, for us, it was like having a secret weapon. So I went with my friend Dan Shocker, and we kept that, I kept that fly a secret for 9 years before we ever introduced it to the public, because anywhere we went, would it be East Lake, Diamond Lake, Deschutes River, Metolius, I mean, we just absolutely did fantastic. And still to this day, we still do fantastic. So it's been like for a kid, you know, when I was younger then, like having a secret weapon when you go fishing. And that's just what we had.
That is so fantastic to figure that out at such a young age. And Donna, how about you? You obviously are a fly tying master as well. When did you recognize that that was something that you really enjoyed and loved to do?
Well, actually, I started tying flies for Jimmy when he had been in business for only 1 year. And when he trained me, it was kind of using archaic tools. So I beautified the fly, made it saleable, and he would use his mother's sewing thread. And so I kind of just got the tools in order and the types of threads that we should be using. And then after I started tying flies for him, I thought, well, I better try to use these. So that's when I got started with my fishing. And I started when I was in my 20s, and I would take it out and tie the fly and then take it onto the river and catch fish. And then, wow, this is beautiful. You know, we love the sport and love to share it with people.
So that passion and the love for the sport has been with you for a long time. Who would you say has been an instrumental influence or coach that really got you leaning towards this line of work?
Way back when I was, much younger, there was a gentleman named Joe Brooks, and he would write for the big national magazines out, and he was like an ambassador for fly fishing. And he went down to Argentina and caught these great big trout. And that's really, I would say that really sparked my interest in the fly fishing. But then, of course, as times change and we get into it, then I'm sure Donna will have another one. But that's how I kind of really got my desire to try to do traveling and to go catch more bigger trout and everything like that.
And I just kind of learned on my own because I wanted to try fly fishing. And so I would just be in my backyard and I would just practice on my own. So I basically learned by myself, but there is a mentor, Joan, who is just an amazing lady who, oh, she is still looked upon today as the mother of fly fishing. And then there's also someone else, Lefty Kreh, who is the father of fly fishing, and he's just like our dad. And in fact, he's the one who got me started saltwater fly fishing. And because of that, I managed a lodge in the Bahamas for 9 fishing seasons. And that was an incredible journey. I still today, have many, many fond memories of those times.
That is a great story. 9 seasons in the Bahamas. I mean, what a cultural experience and a chance to not only serve a clientele that you were already affiliated with because you shared this love of fishing, but also to be in a place that's completely different from America.
Yeah, it was an experience, honestly, that I'll never forget. I have so many friends, and being there that long, I can't tell you how many friends that I have made, and I still fish with this one lady who would come many, many times a year, and we still fish together. She's 77 right now, but you would never know it. She acts 40, and we still fish together. So made some fond friends.
And that's really one of the key ideas behind the Play Your Position podcast, is that lifelong connection to people that we form because of our passions, because of the positions that we've chosen to play in our lives. And I want to now transition into the section I call Move the Chains, which in football, the game of football is the same no matter where you play it. There's the kickoff, and then there's the beginning whistle, and there's the end of the game. And in between, anything and everything can happen, right? So I would love for you to talk a little bit about something that is happening to everybody, and that is that the world has changed very quickly in the last few years, almost at a staggering pace. And I just would love you to share what specific shifts or changes, those interceptions, those sacks have happened in the world that you move in. What are some of those things that have threatened the position that you guys play? And how have you protected yourself against those?
Well, Mary Lou, that's a really great question. The industry that we knew when we started in 71, and then I'd say through the 70s, 80s, and probably at least up to the mid-90s, was the industry that we absolutely loved and adored. And it was like one big giant family. And we've seen changes in the fly fishing industry, but, probably I'd say it's globally in a sense. But what's happening is some of the really big investment companies are buying up a lot of the smaller businesses. And so that's kind of like under a big umbrella. And it makes it really tougher for the independents, and we're an independent, we're a smaller company, but we do sell worldwide, and we've been doing that, and we have some great supporters, and we're very famous in all the countries all over the world. It's kind of a struggle, and because when you're smaller and not the biggest, but we're planning on crawling and climbing right back up to the top.
We found really that you have to go back to the basics, do things like we did in the very beginning, being out in front of people more, which is what Cabela's is doing for us, because when they have us to all their grand openings and to their spring events all over. So it gives us a chance to be in front of the public again, in the public eye, and Jimmy's writing more stories for magazines. So that's kind of where we are right now.
And speaking of the affiliations with a larger company like Cabela's, and also getting your stories out, Jim, in what ways are you leveraging the new digital space to share your message about the value of fly fishing and just the fishing industry in general?
And I'm not very good. I am on Facebook and also LinkedIn, and those two have helped me. It's really great because you can interact with people, and I really, really am enjoying that very much. I've got like 5,000 friends on Facebook, and from all over the world. And as soon as they knew I was on there, here they come, from all parts of the world. and which is really, I mean, it's pretty heartwarming for me. I've actually enjoyed that, and I sit down and I take the time to try to answer everybody if there's a question, and I think that it's really been helping us on the social end of it.
And we also have a new website coming out. It should launch by the end of next week. We're just kind of on the finishing touches. So we're excited about that too, because on there we will have a blog and some video and be able to, stay in touch, and it'll go direct to Facebook also. So we're excited.
Fantastic. That's really the way of reaching an audience that you already have that likes, knows, and trusts you, but also expanding your reach. And you mentioned something earlier that I would love for you to share with listeners today, and that is your upcoming adventure in Sydney, Australia. So would you share? I mean, that's definitely moving the chains down the field. So what's that all about?
Well, I'll tell you, we're so excited. We're like little kids in a candy store right now, because they contacted us and asked for Donna and I to both be featured guest speakers, a 2-day fishing event, and the title of it is Family Fishing Show. And each day they run about 30,000 people a day through the event. And they want us to be their featured guest speakers. So we're going down the first part of April, and we'll be down there for, I think, at least a week, I hope. And then we come back, and then immediately the next morning we fly up to Anchorage, Alaska for a grand opening of a Cabela's in Anchorage, Alaska.
What I'm excited about, Mary Lou, is to kind of pick their brains when we're in Australia, to see what they're doing to bring the families together and getting the kids into the outdoors. That is a huge vision that Jimmy and I have. We've expanded our vision and really are addressing getting the kids back to nature and into the water.
Yeah, and I think that whole change, that goes back to a question I asked earlier regarding the shifts that have happened in the world. What do you see our young people struggling with today? Would you mind talking about that and how your vision and mission plays into helping them move away from those struggles?
That's a very deep question and an awesome one to ask, because we talk about it, I'd say daily, about how do we bring more of the young people into the outdoors, because computers and games and everything like that are so easy for the kids, and the young ones are so highly skilled at it. I don't think it makes that full circle of life for them. If they don't know what it is to be by a campfire, sleep in a tent, do some hiking, and wade the water, float down in a raft or whatever, if they're missing all of those things, they're missing a huge part of what life is really all about, and they're not making that complete circle. So we're doing everything we can. And one of the things that I've noticed when I do clubs and presentations, because I do a lot of speaking, and I look out in the auditorium and I look in the crowd, and there's not that many people that are under 40s, and most of them are 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s. So the generation's getting old, and we need those young people to pick up. Now, I'm not saying there isn't any, but there's not enough, and we need more to keep our passion and our sport alive.
Yes. Donna, do you have anything to add to that?
I'm just kind of right on board with Jimmy, because like he said, we do talk about that a lot. And it is, you see the young kids of today, on their computers all the time. But what was really exciting, I mean, this last weekend, there were a couple of younger kids that I was able to connect with. And I'm excited because we're going to have coffee with them, because what they want to do is do an event in fly fishing and then eventually help kids in Uganda and help kids all over the world by selling a product and then taking the financial piece of it to them so they can have something to look forward to as a business, maybe a product that they can make. And so that was exciting. And I don't know too much about that right now, but we're going to have a coffee with them in about a week and a half. And so I'm excited about that. But was also exciting was to see how many young kids were there tying flies. This was a big fly tying event. And there were probably, I don't know, a half a dozen young boys. I mean, like probably 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. And so that was exciting to see. But I know that they are into that part of it, the creativity part. And as far as the fishing, I don't know. I haven't seen that many young kids on the water. But I think hopefully we're starting to reach some of those kids.
Yes, that is exciting. And speaking of exciting, we have been on the field here and moving towards that end zone. And I think it's time to take the ball into the end zone and score a touchdown. So if you would both share one big moment, it could be from the very beginning of your career, of playing your position in the fly fishing world. It could be as recent as yesterday. But if you would both share one big exciting thing, that really shining example of who you are and what you're all about.
I do have one in mind. Back in 2011, I got a call from a couple of gentlemen in London, and they said, Jim, we only use your fly lines all over the world, freshwater, saltwater, but we don't know you personally. And they said, if we sent you a ticket, would you come fish with us for a week in Iceland for Atlantic salmon? And Donna was right there, and she looked at me and she says, you have to go. And I says, oh, I want to go. And so I said yes, and I went on the most awesome trip it was just an amazing red carpet trip, and we fished 2 different rivers. I got to meet the guys. They were wonderful people, and all the people in Iceland. There was no language barrier. It was incredible. And one of the Atlantic salmon that I landed on that trip and released was the largest one caught in that country in 2011. So it was over the top for me as an adventure and a great trip.
Wow, I have a smile ear to ear right now at that story. That is, what an absolutely amazing experience for you. And Donna, what about you?
Wow, this is really hard because there's so many. A quick story is when we were able to go to Russia and fish. We were the first Americans to be allowed to land in a couple of the airfields that we landed in. There were MiGs and bunkers and all kinds of crazy things that we got to see. And what was really cool, one day we got to go shopping, and they were adding our purchases up on an abacus. And the books were 5 cents, and they were all hand illustrated. It was amazing. So that was a trip that stands out for me. But what really tugs at my heartstrings is something called CFR. It's Casting for Recovery. It's women recovering from breast cancer. And so it was my idea to develop a product, a fly rod, to be able to give back and to help more women attend these events. There's 14 of them that get to go, and there's two a year in Oregon, and one in Northern Oregon, one in Southern Oregon, and then they're all over the United States right now. And this has just been incredible, and I've been able to be there and teach at a few of these, which was an experience that I will honestly never forget, because they have the social psycho people there and that really know how to deal with these women who are going through this experience and journey, and they all get to do it together and to share. Every time I think about it, I get goosebumps, and it's just a great honor actually to be able to be a part of that.
And I can see why, because you are doing exactly what we're, I think, supposed to do in our lives, which is serve. It's not about us. It's our positions that we play. Fly fishing and the fishing industry in general has been so good to you both, but it's because you were good to it. You have given so much of your time and shared what you love and really played your position so well that people are just naturally attracted to you, and then you can use that as a way of really sharing something bigger than yourselves. And I applaud you for that. I'm absolutely in awe of the work that you're doing now, but the work that you've done throughout your lives, because you've brought so much joy. I know my son has fly fished, and my nephews, and I can remember, Jim, that you might like this, back in the day Larry's over there in Tigard, and your flies were prominently featured over there. And I actually, in another life, worked in Alaska on the Kenai River, and so I interacted with a lot of people who talked about you and your flies. I fish, but I'm not an avid fisherman the way some people are, but I do know you have an amazing reputation and have for a long, long time. So thank you for that. If you wouldn't mind, as we bring it out of our conversation today, could you share 1 to 3 key offensive strategies that are straight out of the Jim and Donna Teeny playbook that listeners could implement right away to really move the chains of their lives and or their businesses forward? What advice would you give?
We have always been very honest, and we don't keep any secrets, and we're happy to share with people. And I'm working on trying to be a much better listener. And so I think if you go in with an open heart and an open mind, I think anything that you do, you could be very, very successful at. That's one of the things that we're very proud of, and thank you for your kind words a minute ago. We're proud of who we are, what we've done. We don't really have to worry about who's coming up behind us. We're going to continue on that path and that journey, and we love to share and we love to teach. And we know that we've actually brought in thousands of people into the sport of fly fishing. We're very happy with that.
Yeah, and servant leadership, we just love to be a part of all that. Customer service, we're huge in customer service. The customer's always right. We love to be on the water and share with people. So we're all about family. And so we stay tight as a family and we're happy. We live great lives. We feel that we're very blessed, and we're just best friends, work well together, and we're excited.
And Mary Lou, one of the things that we've always been proud of is we're always on the cutting edge of new designs. Whether it be flies or fly lines or fly rods. We've never really been a company to copy anybody, so everything that we do is usually on the cutting edge and only to help and benefit everybody.
And that is, again, part of your whole aura of the servant leadership and giving back to the community that's been so good to you. And again, great job on that. So speaking of that, what is the best way for people to connect with you? Where can people find Jim and Donna Teeny?
Our website is www.jimteeny.com. We're easy to find. Our brand new one will launch in a couple of weeks. Find him on Facebook easy under, just Jim Teeny. So those would probably be the best places. And then you can always give us a call too, 503-667-6602.
Fantastic. And for listeners today, there will be a page at maryloukaser.com/Jim and Donna. And you can go right there and get all the show notes from today's episode, as well as the links to the resources and sites that Jim and Donna have shared. So Jim and Donna, I want to thank you for your time today. This has been an incredible conversation. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with next and continue to follow you online. And your generosity and your big hearts definitely reflect the kind of people that you are. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. We sure appreciate it, Mary Lou.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to do this. We really enjoyed it.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Play Your Position podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's guest as much as I did. And remember, you can find the show notes from today's episode over at maryloukaser.com/podcast. I would also so appreciate it if you would take a few minutes to leave me a quick 5-star review on iTunes so more people can find this program and benefit from the wisdom my guests share. I look forward to seeing you on future episodes, and in the meantime, it's a great day to get out there and play your position.
Thanks for listening to the Play Your Position podcast, where your story matters and we make it count at maryloukaser.com.